Hello and welcome everyone to Have a Moment. We are exploring the fascinating intersection of success and mysticism all in one. And I am the founder and host of this beautiful, what I'm calling Have a Moment. And I invented the flow state technique, and we're going to dive deep into the world of hypnotherapy today, which is a key component of a flow state technique. So whether you are an entrepreneur, a leader, or someone just on this journey of personal transformation, this episode is going to give you some mind-blowing insights into unlocking your potential and achieving your goals by taking a moment with hypnotherapy. And so I am thrilled to introduce our esteemed guest today, Lorraine Bennington. Now, Lorraine, she's a psychologist and a hypnotherapist, and she has a deep interest in the subconscious mind and the intuitive connection with spiritual things. So she was born and educated in Canada. Then she spent 10 years living, oh gosh, she's so lucky, on Kauai and Maui. And she immersed herself there in some healing teachings and surrounded by the beautiful Hawaiian Islands. So Lorraine combines psychology, hypnotherapy, dream work, energy psychology, and success coaching. So we're going to get into some really cool conversations surrounding limiting beliefs. I am sure of that. Now, over her 40-year career, she has assisted over 50,000 people in achieving personal and professional goals by accessing their subconscious stories. Now, she is a registered psychologist in Vancouver since 1980, and Lorraine is passionate about helping people, her clients, to really clarify and establish their goals. She uses, as I said, hypnotherapy, energy psychology to clear blocks, really build self-esteem, unlock optimal performance, creativity, all of that. And she also works with couples on relationship issues. She teaches practical skills like meditation and self-hypnosis, and even just affirmative thought. Now, Lorraine believes people are inherently whole and well, as do I, and she sees herself really as just helping to be a detective of the mind and really, empowering her clients to navigate their internal landscapes. So, Lorraine, welcome to Have a Moment. We are going to have a moment, more than one, I'm sure. We are so excited to explore the transformative power of hypnotherapy and beyond with you today.
Thank you for that lovely introduction, Holly. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to exploring.
Awesome. So, Lorraine, it's fascinating to me that you started studying hypnotherapy at age 21 when it was not a well-known thing, right? And so I want to understand your story. What drew you into that field before it was a well-known thing, and how has your understanding of its potential evolved over the decades?
Great question, Holly. So I would start by saying I was always drawn to understand deeper. There was this push in me from the time I was really small to figure out what's going on, to understand the meaning of life. It was just built in. And so when I discovered hypnotherapy, there was this 30-hour course that was available in Montreal where I was living. And I took it and I was flabbergasted. I was so excited we did healing, long distance healings. We did so many things that I didn't know one could do. And from there, we said, what do you want? Go down your elevator. What is your goal? And at that point, at my 21-year-old juncture, I just wanted to see God. That was it. There was no make money. There was no be successful in the world. I just want to see God. I want to figure out the big picture. So that was my driving force in my early 20s. And then within less than a year, I had run into my spiritual teacher, Guru Maharaji at the time. The young guru went to India, lived in ashrams, did this very deep dive into meditation, but always connected to hypnosis as well. Because to me, it's all one, truly. It's the inner state is kind of like paint, and you can paint watercolor, you can paint landscapes, you can paint flowers, you can paint the walls but it's still the same flow state. I love the way you call it flow state. So it depends on how you utilize it. Can I go into meditation? Okay, my vision of meditation is yin and hypnosis is yang. Meditation is receiving whatever the universe gives you, being open to whatever comes to you as you still your mind. Hypnosis has a goal. It's directional. It's going for something, whether it's going for a career direction or a financial direction or success, motivation, self-confidence, public speaking, you name it, it's a goal, or it's deblocking things that get in the way of your goal. So the deeper hypnosis is going into the origin of these stories to clear whatever is stopping that trajectory. Yeah. So it's very yang, it's very active, it's very goal driven.
Yeah, you know, that's what really drew me to hypnotherapy as well, because I was working a lot with the feminine side of spirituality, and a lot of my students were wanting the science behind it. And I love the way that hypnotherapy really just, it works, and it works for a reason. And it's also a way to access those deeper levels of consciousness to understand how we create the lives that we lead through our responses. And so I would love for you to describe the hypnotic state. What does that mean to you? What makes it so powerful? What's happening when we are in this trance state? And why is it so impactful and transformative?
Well, let's deep dive into the nature of human beings is that we've always had access to trance through our dreams. Human beings live in trance part of every night. So it's not a strange, weird, out of the ordinary. It is what we live as part of our renewal when we sleep. So if you understand that, it takes some of the odd feeling of what is hypnosis and what does it mean? It's more like you're learning to go into a deep dream state, but navigate it. So in the way that with dream work, we can go into trance, into hypnosis and redream. There is a technique called redreaming where you relive your dream and change the outcome and interview the characters and face down the monsters and open the doors that are locked and look out windows that were closed and redo the dream. Okay, so that's
my God. Awesome.
So fun.
I'd love to do that.
Yes, it's so lovely. And, you know, and that, by the way, origin story. So that was taught again in the 70s by a rabbi named Jerry Merklinger. No, it wasn't Jerry Merklinger. Oh my God, Rabbi Steinberg. Anyway, there was this rabbi and he was teaching this redreaming just after I had taken that hypnosis course. And it was like the floodgates opened and, you know, I could access people's dreams, and then we could work with them, not just interpret them, which are quite fun to do as well, but actually go into them and become part of them. So that's one use of trance. Another use of trance is what more people know as programming, where you are sitting in a state of relaxed breath, the mind is slower, and you're telling yourself, I'm confident, I'm positive, I'm directional, I'm motivated, you're programming. But a lot of times if there's a block, it's not going to land. If people believe they're not all those things, it's not going to work. So I do a lot of what I call gradual affirmations. I'm learning that I'm confident. I'm becoming more confident. I'm embracing my prosperity. I'm developing a sense of connection to this goal. This is becoming more easy for me. So people, for those of you who do affirmations, just make it a little more gradual if they aren't working. So that's step one. Step two is if there's some deeper belief, like an anchor to your boat that's keeping it from floating, it's important to actually see where did that originate. So the deeper trance work is regression, where we go back to where did this all start? And it can be way back, or it can be a few years ago, or it can be kindergarten. So I don't put on my clients where I think they are going to go. I just open that spacious place of where is it this started? And then we journey back to, and relive it and then heal it by rewriting it. So that the rewrite component is huge in regression.
Amazing. Absolutely amazing. Now, I see what you mean by you've gone way past traditional hypnotherapy and infused this psychology and spirituality into it. I see you as having a much more holistic approach to hypnotherapy, yes, traditional hypnotherapy. And I'm sure that this holistic approach has greatly enhanced the effectiveness. Can you walk us through a typical session, or do you not have a typical session? What can someone new to hypnotherapy expect if they had a session with you?
Okay. Well, I'm not sure typical is a word I would use for what I do. Because everyone's unique. It's kind of like every fingerprint is different, every snowflake's different. There is a certain pattern. So what I won't do is go to your absolute worst trauma first. And so many people think that's smart. It is not smart. That's like, no. You want to develop a sense of comfort with going into that state where the intellect is at rest and elsewhere, so the intuition can take over. And I actually do something which you're welcome to borrow if you do imaging. I ask people, send your intellect out of your body, give them something to do, read a book, study a manual. If you're an actor, read a script, keep busy, so that now you and I, the intuitive you, can do the work. What happens is, if you don't do that, I have seen over and over someone saying, well, I think I might be making this up. And that, no, that's your intellect, send them back out. Or then they're going, I'm not sure if this is true. My mother said, that's your intellect, send them back out. Because that is going to keep somebody from going deeper. That will actually impede the process of depth.
I bet. Yeah. So it's really also there's got to be a lot of common misconceptions that people have about hypnotherapy. I mean, even just using their logical brain in a session and saying, oh, well, I might be making this up. Can you how do you address these, common misconceptions about hypnotherapy and what you're doing with your clients, or do you not bother?
I bother, of course I bother. And so I think the first thing is, it doesn't matter if it's true. Let's believe that it doesn't matter, because it's all true or none of it's true. We're dealing with a big movie, honestly. I love movies of the mind. When I was young, I studied film a lot. I didn't realize until a little later that my love of hypnosis and my love of film are one and the same thing, because it's all about being in that creative zone where you are able to move images. And in film, people edit. In hypnosis, we go back and rewrite, right? So there's actually a strong correlation between those two places. I know you said typical. I'm going to have to go back to that in a minute, because it really isn't typical. But first, we need to get the intellect out of the way. Secondly, we need to say, it doesn't matter if it's true. Whatever you tell me is fine. You see a pink giraffe, I'm cool with it. You're in ancient Egypt, I'm fine with it. You're back with your great-great-grandmother, I'm fine with it. I do not worry about proving the accuracy of someone's inner landscape. I am more interested in you go into that landscape and begin feeling. And what is significant is people start having emotion. They will cry, they will laugh, they will have deep feelings in this story, regardless of what the story is. And that's the part we need to work with, that emotional truth. And then maybe the stories are true and not. I've had people actually confirm very early birth experiences, things they remembered even from their grandparents. That's a whole other things that happened to their grandparents before they were born, and validate it with a living grandparent. So there are some ways we can validate. Other times, if you can't, just assume that we've rewritten the map. We've rewritten the story so that there's more space for the person's authentic self to express.
I love it. You are speaking my language. I actually have this conversation a lot with people about how I think we are sort of living in not a film, but sort of almost like a video game. We are avatars, and at every moment we have unlimited levels available to us. we have the power to choose in any moment which direction we go in. And that sovereignty can look like we don't have a choice sometimes when people allow their limitations to hold them back. And what I hear from you is that you can just become the main character of your own movie, and you can edit the past things, and it's the way you feel or recall those past things that matters now in the moment and moving forward. And so this is definitely, whether you believe it or not, that is what matters, is those underlying pinnings of the things that you may not even know you're believing, because they're just patterns and they're sort of locked into your avatar. And so you're really helping people just to level up and out. And your truth, I always say, your truth is your truth and it's true, but do you want it to be? We can change the storyline, we can change the plot. And I think this is why hypnotherapy and other, flow state techniques, it's such a unique approach in addressing the root causes of anxiety, phobias, limiting beliefs, and tracing them back to that one source point so someone can make a different choice. And in doing so, they change the past, which changes the now, and they move forward as if something is, this new storyline is the new them. It's such a cool place. And I'm so glad that you can be doing this with people. Are you still doing sessions with people?
Oh, yes, full time.
Awesome. Okay. So
I'm not working in person anymore. I did for many, many years have an office, and now I'm on Zoom. But the work is the same, because we connect like this, and we connect in consciousness, and then the work becomes the work.
yeah.
Right.
Yeah. And so can you share, you mentioned briefly a second ago, having people go back and then they could then validate that indeed that was what it was, even though they should have been too young to know that necessarily. Is there any story that comes to mind, obviously within, you want to not expose things about people, but just any story about how going back in a timeline has helped transform someone, their personal life, professional life? What's one of your funnest or interesting success stories?
I have so many. Oh my goodness. Okay, let me tell you a few which you're going to have fun with. So the first is, I had a client who always procrastinated, and he had no idea where this came from, but it was interfering with his work and his success. So we did a regression, and I said, okay, get to the root cause of your procrastination. He was 2 weeks late when he was born. And he was procrastinating coming out into his particular family because they were rather conflictual. And so he was in the womb going, do I really want to do this? Am I absolutely sure this is what I want to do? And literally 2 weeks late, finally, they had to induce him and get him out. And he was all the time going, I don't want someone else to tell me what to do. I don't want someone else's timing and agenda on me. And so that was running into all of his work scenarios and his relationship scenarios, this holding on to, it's got to be my timing, and also procrastinating everything. So once we cleared that, he was fine, right? Once we were able to bring it up and heal that story, there was no more need to react it and reenact it, right?
That is fascinating. And it makes so much sense. I love how, as you were saying earlier, everything does make sense. Nothing's irrational when it comes with, to do with the way you feel and the way you're perceiving something. And so we've got to be more loving with ourselves and say, well, look, something happened and we may not even know what, but getting to that root and then choosing a different outcome. I can see also how your sessions must be multi-dimensional in terms of, if someone comes in with a personal issue, oftentimes that will transpose into an advancement in their professional life as well. How we do one thing is how we do sort of everything. And so when people come to you with, let's say, a health issue, and then they see like, oh, wow, working with you has resolved that, and now I have more passion and motivation for life. It's all interconnected. And so I don't know, there's not really a question with this. It's just, has your experience been the same with it being like holistic?
Absolutely. I like to call it positive dominoes. One domino falls in the right direction, and then we start having a series of changes. Sometimes people don't understand why something radically changed in another part of their life when they've cleared this part, but it's all interconnected. Health for sure. A lot of people come in with a health issue. And of course, there's always many layers. There's the medical, I certainly respect the medical profession for what they do. What I do is the internal, the belief system, the stressors that might have led to the illness or kept the illness going, the beliefs from the family of origin. I do a lot of family of origin work because a lot of time, again, we don't know how early our story, a lot of people carry their mother's anxiety, their mother's traumas, and reenact them in their own life, thinking it's their anxiety, and it's really not. It's a learned anxiety. And in that compassionate space, they can give it back to the mother in their consciousness and say, I love you, but I'm not carrying your anxiety anymore. And there's an instant relief. There's a breath. And, oh, this is not mine. And there's very, very strong changes that occur when people can clear the origin. Okay, I want to say one more thing. It's never where you think it is. So people come in and saying, I know this happened. This was the origin of this problem. And they're pretty emphatic that it started in grade 3. But usually grade 3 is a trigger. High school is a trigger. Those are valid memories that activated something that often is before the age of 7. So if somebody's telling me, oh, and this is very common, I had an abusive partner, I lost my self-confidence, I'm always curious, what did your parents look like? How did they interact? Or your grandparents? What's the family lineage around abuse, for example? How far back does this story flow? Can we get to the origin of the belief that women aren't respected and clear that, even if it's great grandma, and then bring the change forward? So it's never what people rarely understand how far back we are conscious. Babies know at birth what's going on. Little babies who have a hard birth have a harder time with transitions than babies who have an easier birth. Right? Because first transition, birth, we get born. How did it feel going from safe, solitude, quiet, lovely, warm, and then poof into the world? That's the first transition, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is. Oh my gosh. Well, epigenetics has been near and dear to my heart, and you're bringing in some of that, which really shows me you are so holistic in your approach, because this is not something you and I are making up. They've actually done studies, and epigenetics is relatively new, about the last 15 years, but they're finding that there are emotional markers that are passed down above the genes. And so you just have these built-in triggers because your great-great-grandmother was afraid of XYZ. And so again, as you release the source of those things that you couldn't possibly know, you free up space and you sort of undo generational curses. They aren't really curses, but they're just, and they're well-meaning. It's like, warning, you should have an alert for this. Well, actually, no thanks, great-great-grandma. I don't need to carry that alert anymore. And you free up that space, and you also you heal for future generations, so we can all begin to process this collective junk. Because I think they say that they can trace it back 7 generations. Well, that's like 140 something people. That's a tremendous amount of triggers that we may or may not want to keep. And so I applaud you for your work in helping people discover and decipher what's theirs, what's not theirs, what they want to keep, what they don't want to keep. And then, of course, coming back into the age range when we are in alpha and theta age, womb to around 7, before we realize, I don't have to take everything that I'm hearing as fact and programmed in. I can actually make my sovereign choices, and then it becomes the unlearning. Now we've got to unlearn what we've learned.
It's so true. And I think one of the beauties of, there's 2 thoughts that you've triggered for me. One is thank you to science, because when I started doing this work, as you said, there weren't a lot of people who were doing hypnosis, who were actively working with the subconscious, with dream state. There were, of course, Jung was doing this work way back when and so on, but it wasn't mainstream. And now there has been so much more scientific study, even double-blind, triple-blind studies on hypnosis to show that it actually has validity. Work on epigenetics. I don't know if you know the study with little rats. I always feel sorry for the rats, but I'll tell you the story anyway. So there were these rats and they were traumatized in a lab, and there were beautiful smelling flowers in the lab at the same time. And they tracked the grandchildren of those rats and put them in a room with flowers that were the exact same as the flowers which their grandparents had in the room when they were traumatized. And immediately the baby rats went into full panic, because this is grandchildren, because it was carried epigenetically. So all this new study just validates what I've seen in terms of experiential. A lot of my work is, if it works, it's true. If it doesn't work, let's find something that is true, right? Let's find something that works for somebody. I'm not going to stick with anything that isn't effective. But now science is saying, yes, these things, there's a reason they're effective, right?
Absolutely. Well, listen, we have covered a lot, and I wish we could continue the conversation now, but it's clear to me we're going to need to splice this up into some episodes. So, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Lorraine, your insights are really next level. I'm super pumped that we've met each other. And to our listeners, we've only scratched the surface. Like, subscribe, and she's coming back in. We're doing another segment now. So we're going to break this into part 1 and part 2. And so in our next session, maybe we'll get into exploring more about the applications of hypnotherapy in business, and discuss maybe some self-hypnosis techniques, self-hypnosis rather, techniques that you can do and try for yourself. Really just build this, deeper connection between what is a flow state and hypnotherapy, and how can it improve your life. So Lorraine, thank you so much for your time today. I can't wait to continue our discussion with you. And guys, if by some chance that you don't catch the second episode, Lorraine, can you just mention what your website is so that they can connect with you and learn more?
Sure. It's creativetransformations.ca.
Awesome. And guys, I'm going to put her bio and her links in the description of the podcast and the video replay so that you have access to that. So check that out. And as always, if you're interested in learning more about the flow state technique, which does integrate hypnosis and self-hypnotherapy, go to our website, alchemical.academy or neuro-manifesting.com. And again, don't forget to like us on YouTube so that you don't miss part 2 of this incredible interview. Thank you so much for listening. And remember, every moment is an opportunity for growth and transformation. And as I always say, take a moment to flow and grow. You're going to watch yourself grow when you flow. And I'm your host. It's such a pleasure to be here. Until another now, blessings to you. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Bye.